Don't you have
I
a...
can do the microphone.
Yeah. Wait, do you have your earbuds? That's like...
Yeah, it's cool.
Here, this got the bigger. Oh, no, it's like... It's the happy.
just gotta sneak inside. We can look right here. Okay.
Edit it down. Are you? Good. He just drag you along. He's like, come on, you're gonna learn something.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'll feel what. He's like, I know people coming. I know Felipe's coming. I don't know that Orlando's coming. Definitely going to turn out to be the biggest Hebrew 1 class I've ever done. I got more people coming today that haven't been yet.
Oh, wow.
Good. 5 potatoes. So you're getting way ahead. You're getting way ahead, getting all the way through chapter 2.
Yeah. We were on vacation. And
Yeah, we just got back.
and I don't know if we're gonna make it today, so I'm just gonna do this. Yeah. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna humble myself, and I'm gonna take my time. Yeah. Why you say it like that for?
That is fine.
I don't believe it. No, sure, thanks. Yeah.
What's going on, Eric?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
What a nice day out there.
It is.
Such a nice day out. Thought I better get back inside.
Yeah, there's a limit to how much I can enjoy being outside. But it's hot. I don't mind the spring and the fall. It's just summer kills me.
Yeah, the heat's no fun.
Summer kills me. In winter, I just as soon be inside with the fire. I'd rather not be out there. I'll send the kids out in the cold.
I don't want to do that.
You're lucky we don't get snow like we used to when I was a kid.
I wish.
When we could schedule our shoveling jobs. You know?
I grew up in the snow belt off of Lake Erie outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York.
Then
So-
you know how it is.
Not the Buffalo side. We were on the Vermont side of the state, but we still would get, I mean, you could, it was like clockwork. Every 3-4 days, you'd get 6 inches of snow, and sometimes you'd get a foot. Occasionally, you'd get 2. But Buffalo's a whole different world.
Yeah, that's how Cleveland was. You know,
That lake effect
we
snow,
had some of the
man.
highest snow totals in the United States.
It's crazy.
It had to be coming down when I was a kid from midnight to 6 a.m. It had to be coming down at a rate of over an inch an hour
Mhm.
for them to cancel school.
Oh, yeah.
Because they could keep up with it. I mean, it's a lot of snow too.
But they
But I mean,
had
of course,
the
they're equipped for it, you know.
had
And
the
you don't
gear for it. Yeah.
you don't think about that when you're a kid. Looking back on it now, I can see that.
My wife and I lived in Denver for 5 years, and the first winter we were out there, we got a storm that dumped 4 feet on us over 3 days. It just never stopped. And I was out there every 2 hours shoveling my driveway because that's the way I grew up. It was like you never let it get ahead of you. Just go out, you do it, you go back inside. You go out, you do it, you go back inside. And by the time it stopped, I had 6-foot high walls all around my driveway, but no plow would come down the street. So it's just I had this clear spot in the driveway. I was like, well, what am I going to do? Finally, somebody with a bobcat came through and cleared our street. But my wife was stuck at work for 3 days.
Oh boy.
She's a nurse, and so when it started snowing, they're
Yeah.
like, "You get here now." My work was like, "Go home."
My wife was a nurse too. Same way.
Yeah.
Never in Denver. But
Yeah, anywhere you get bad weather like that, that's their policy. Is if it starts coming down, you just go ahead and come on in.
no excuse not to get to work if you don't leave.
Mm-hmm. We'll give you a place to stay. We'll feed you, but we want you here. So, what is your deal?
Ooh, yeah.
Is she under your feet?
Olivia is right behind
Olivia Hope,
Sorry.
take your books and go
You.
out.
Was week one that brutally hard?
I don't know, man. Well, I know Deborah and her husband aren't going to be here today. They have an appointment. I'm actually trying live streaming this
Oh.
so that if they can get on, they can. But we'll see if they do. But that's the only one I know isn't going to be here.
And yeah, Nat's driving from Burlington.
You're right. I know Yanette's coming. Who else are we missing? I'm confusing my Hebrew 1 and Hebrew 2 classes. Felipe,
Hey,
how's it going, man?
sorry, I brought some food.
Hey, you're fine. You can take a seat wherever.
Okay. And I've got money also.
Awesome. I like money. That's a book.
All right, there's the 5.
Yep.
And there's the 20.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Couldn't get your dad to come?
No.
He's like, I got too much to do.
I think they're in Winston right now.
Oh, are they?
That's where they were when I called them right here.
And Melissa drives from Winston. She could be running a little behind.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we got a number of people that drive from far out.
That's good. It's like a 20-some minute drive for me.
Yeah. Yeah, especially coming down Wendover.
Mhm.
That could be a nightmare.
Not just that, coming down Eastchester.
Yeah.
They have that festival by the lake.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that was this weekend.
Mhm.
Yeah. They have like half of it blocked off for traffic. And,
Pretty much.
Mhm.
And then all that road construction in there.
Yeah, that
Makes
just
it a nightmare.
adds to it. Yeah, it's so much the better. So, Felipe, do you have any experience with Hebrew at all? None?
I've studied the alphabet. That's about
Right.
it.
That's right. You did tell me that.
And even still, that's still kind of like, I could recognize it if I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw Hebrew, I would recognize it as Hebrew.
Right. It's kind of easily identifiable.
Yeah, yeah.
For the most part. It doesn't look like much else.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought you'd like that.
Nice. You're in the class. There's like a 5-second delay.
Watching the live stream.
Yeah, watching the live stream while in class. There's a 5-second delay, so don't listen to it at the same time.
That way, if I miss anything.
Yeah.
What?
5 seconds.
Cover my bases.
Went from like 9 last week or 8 last week to 3.
I was scared I was going to be really late. I spent I think 10 minutes waiting for the food.
It's usually like 1:10, 1:15 before we really get started. Mostly because people drive in from all over the place. Some people come from church, and so that delay as well. Oh, here's some- or is that, no, it's Gabe kicking the table. That's the door. Hey,
Hey guys.
how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Sorry, we're a few minutes late.
Oh, that's okay. There's a few others who are late too. It's all good. That's usually what happens.
Friday, yeah.
Y'all need books. Yes,
Yeah.
It's just,
How much are they?
25.
you can share one, or do you have to have two separate? Or
Well, their work. It's a work.
You write in it.
So you write in it.
I'd rather share them because it's just too much more. We have so many other materials.
Yeah.
I mean, I put it honestly. Yeah.
Do you break anything?
25. So give me 20 and we'll work out the other 5 later.
So you do that, you can put it towards.
Yeah, Gabe doesn't bite. I promise he won't bite. I've trained him enough not to.
I know.
If I were Irene, I would worry.
It does open from the back, right?
Yes, it opens backwards.
And
They made it like a Hebrew book. So no. In Japan, books are written backwards as well, aren't they? That's what I thought.
Yeah, Japanese is confusing.
Yeah.
It could be left to right, right to left,
Up or down.
or it could be down to up, either the other direction.
Well, it doesn't
Usually
make
the
sense
books-
that way. It must be this way.
I know. Usually the books will be printed right to left, though.
Yeah.
That's how they're printed.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I remember I worked in a bookstore for a little while, and that was one of the things we noticed about a lot of the manga novels are all
Backwards.
backwards.
Well, it's interesting because, like, on signs or if you're driving, it'll be left to right always, or up and down is normally how you'll see it.
I don't see how that works.
Yeah.
If you don't have a standard way of writing.
That's just how Japanese is, I guess. There's 3 different forms of writing they use that are all, you can see them all mixed together. Well, 2 of them are easy. They're phonetic, but it's kind of like how we have uppercase, lowercase letters.
Yeah.
Same sound, they just look different.
Right.
So it's like that. They have 2 alphabets like that. But then there's the characters, the kanji.
Oh,
And that's the one that there's 1,800 plus characters.
yeah. I don't see how you learn that.
You
Yeah,
must memorize it, I guess.
yeah, that's it. You just learn. But they're helpful though because they give you meaning.
Right.
Because there could be one word pronunciation could mean 50 different things, and you just have to know by context what it actually means. That's the hard part. Because
No.
everything's pronounced the same. Yeah.
English is hard enough.
Yeah.
Hebrew is another level to do something like that, or Chinese. I'm just like, no, sorry. It's just too foreign. It's too.
Chinese or Mandarin is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you're raised in something all your life, it probably doesn't seem like that.
Yeah, you know
It
it.
comes natural to us because we've spoken this language since we were learning
Yes.
to speak. But
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things I talked about last week with Hebrew was, I mean, we're not doing a conversational Hebrew class. This is biblical Hebrew, but the people who are native speakers don't need vowel points in them. They don't need anything like that. So the newspapers have no vowel pointings. No books have vowel pointings in them. They just don't need them. They're raised with it.
they know this.
Well, they're not right. I learned when I was over there that it's like us and our vowels, it's, when we're kindergarten, we learn our vowels,
Mhm.
like K or first. Well, they learn it too. And then we
Yes.
know our vowels by sight. So that's why it's the same thing as American, how we learn our vowels.
Right.
That's why they don't have the vowel things. So it's kind of like,
Kind of graduate out of it.
yeah, they graduate out of it because they know when they see the letters,
They know
that
what word it's
vowels
supposed to be.
automatically go in there.
Right.
Kind of like us when we see,
If we were to drop the vowels out of most English words, we would still know what word it is because we know the word already. We're used to that word already. There are some that, if you drop the vowels out, you're left with just not enough letters to be able to tell you in English. Like if I just said R and D, you would know if I'm talking about the color red, if I'm talking about
Road,
to read a
right.
book or a road or anything like that. You wouldn't know, but you would in context if I put it in a sentence. He painted his house RD.
Yeah.
You'd go, oh, it's red. You would just know it instinctively because you know the language, and that's the way Hebrew is. And they instinctively know the language because they've known it for their whole lives. So they don't need the vowels.
yeah, that's fair. I don't really like it with the vowels. I wish there was a way to teach it without the vowel marks like that. I mean, like, learn how they learned it. Like, we went through some of these, and I know it
Back to being
didn't
5
seem
years old, I
right.
guess.
It's like you can't do transliteration, or you're never gonna learn it, transliterate, just seeing the sound of it. You have to look at the letters of the Hebrew,
Right. But the only
So-
way to do that is to be familiar with
Yeah,
it as
like
they
so,
are.
as-
Yeah.
to be taught the way they were, really. So I wonder if this book teaches like that. That's what I was wondering.
These books, 1 and 2, never drop vowel points.
Yeah.
They just don't. I mean, these are very, very slow, very remedial.
But they teach you like they would have learned
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know.
in their education system and that. That's what I've been looking for, because I think if you get it the way they've done it, then it would probably be easier to learn.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, but I'm saying that you could use that.
It's
that's
probably like
very,
phonetics. in
yeah,
English.
phonetics, like you can
Mhm.
take their education, like that's how we teach our ESL students.
Right.
You know, from our language, we teach it the way,
Yes.
that's how they learn.
Yes. This builds phonetics and roots.
This might
So-
be similar.
So when you are going through this, you'll see it has all the vowel pointings, but the whole point is not to remember the vowel pointings necessarily. It's to get the sounds correct and then build the roots of the words, which are generally 3 letters. And once you know the root, then you know the basic meaning of that word. And then context gives you the precise meaning. And that's the way it builds throughout the books.
Well, it seems like it might be similar then.
Right. So by the time you're done, you'd be able to look up at something like this and know what those,
Yeah.
what it says. You don't need the vowel pointings
Right,
because you know the context, you know what it says.
that's great.
That's not an easy thing to do.
No,
Not at all.
but I'd rather learn it that way than transliteration
Right.
because that was confusing to me.
Yeah, I
You
don't,
know, I have to look at them trying to say what the word says and then the vowel point, I mean,
the problem with transliteration is that we get in our heads the English
yes.
ways.
Yeah,
And so when you, like I said last week, that if you want to make notes in here about pronunciation, you know, and write it with transliteration, that's fine in the beginning, but it'll become a crutch later on. It'll be a problem.
right,
You're going to need to drop that as you get through the book, or else you're not going to be able to get to the end. Because it gets to the point where you're reading full passages of stuff, and it's like you're not going to sit there and transliterate these full passages.
how many have you gone through? This
Of
whole
these
thing?
classes?
This whole- yeah,
I did 1 and 2 here, and then took 2 years with Tim Hague at Torah Resource Institute. That was college level. And in the first 3 weeks, we went through 1 and 2 that we do here. And then after that, it was all new stuff for me. I blasted through the first year, which was 36 weeks of it. And then the second year, we did nothing but translation. So he was like, okay, you get Jonah chapter 1, translate it from the Hebrew to the English, diagram all the sentences, explain to me why your translation is better than any other translation out there.
That's pretty intense.
Holy cow, it was intense. And that was just 1 semester.
that's great.
It was really good and really intense. I'm not fluent by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But I'm well versed enough that I can sit down and I can look at the Hebrew text and I can look at the English text and go, close, not close. Yes, no. I can see why they would choose this word. I disagree with it here, kind of a thing.
Well, this is conversational. I guess you're talking biblical, but
Yeah.
when I learned Spanish, some of it anyway, I remember they had us watch commercials on TV.
Yeah.
It moves really fast
Oh,
and there's a lot of
telenovelas.
words
Oh
thrown
my
in.
gosh, the soap operas.
Yeah.
Amazing for learning Spanish. Because you get the drama, you get the emotion, and you're like, oh, okay. It's great. Yeah. Either that or music.
Mhm, yeah.
Music for learning a new language works really, really well because you get used to
Yeah.
the rhythms of the speech, and you're like, okay, the patterns and what words are
Makes sense.
used more often than not. And so, yeah, it's very cool. All right, so we're still missing a couple people. We're gonna get going because we only have so much time. Okay, so quick review of chapter 1. We learned 3 consonants: the bet, the sheen, and the tav. And we learned 2 vowels: the patak and kametz. Now, for those of you who are new, they treat, for the purposes of this book, they treat the bet and the vet as 2 different things, just for learning, because they want you to get the sound correct first, so that you recognize when you see a bet with a dagesh, with that dot in the middle of it, that's a B, that's a B, versus when you see it without and it's a V. So that'll come later. Same thing with the sheen. The sheen, when you move the dagesh that's on the right-hand side of it to the left-hand side, it changes the sound from a sh to a s. So they teach all those different sounds separately. So again, like I was talking about earlier, the phonetics, that's the way they do it. They do it phonetically so that
Right.
you separate all those different sounds. How many letters were in the Hebrew alphabet?
22.
22. How do we know that?
You told us.
What biblical evidence is there for it?
Because of the some 119.
Psalm 119 has 22 stanzas, and each one starts with a different letter, a different character of the Hebrew alphabet.
Creation.
And is that like the bet and the bet?
Yes.
That's still two things. It's not one thing.
No, that's one.
Okay,
That's still one.
of the 22.
Right.
The
Of
book of Lamentations is the same way.
Is it?
I hadn't realized that. All 5 chapters are all in acrostic. I think all 5 are in acrostic like that.
I hadn't heard that. I'll have to look at that. That's interesting. So we got 3 consonant sounds, 1 vowel sound, but 2 different points, 2 different markers. And as we talked about last time, the marker does matter. Which vowel you use matters because it will change the meaning of the word. If you use the wrong one, it's not the same word. We saw that with bot, daughter. It has to be a patak, not a kametz. If it's a kametz, it's not daughter anymore. It's something else. It's nonsense. How do we know the difference? We as English speakers wouldn't know the difference. Native speakers know the difference. They can hear that tiny, slight difference in how it's pronounced. But because we're not used to it, we're not nuanced enough in it to know which one they're saying when they speak it.
They both sound like the though, right?
They both say ah. There are 4 different vowel pointings that all say ah. There are 4 vowel pointings that say oh. It has to do with the length of how long they hold it. But I mean, when somebody's speaking to you rapid fire, you're not going to know that millisecond difference. But somebody who's a native speaker will hear it and know it instinctively because of context and familiarity.
Maybe like, well, it's not a good example. Less than father and feather. I'm like, they're almost the same by 1 letter difference, but there's a very different sound in the word.
We have enough English words that are close enough together. If I just say read, you don't know if I'm talking about the stalk of grass or if I'm talking about the verb read. It has to do with context. You know then immediately which one it is and how to spell it. Right? So that's kind of the same way. Context tells you a lot. But at the same time, they also can hear a difference. There are videos on YouTube that try to explain that difference. And even after watching them a dozen times, I still could not quite get it because I'm not that familiar with it. I'm not that comfortable with it. I don't know conversational Hebrew so well. So I don't hear it every day. I don't speak it every day. And when you do, you have that familiarity. But vowel points do matter when you're learning so that you know which word you're writing and so that the person you're trying to communicate with knows what you're trying to say. If you were to walk up to somebody and say, let me introduce my daughter, they would know when you say bot, you're saying bet, patak, tav, because they know the word daughter. They wouldn't mistake it because of your pronunciation. So, our exercises on page 9 was practice writing them. And then we were going to do some reading practice on page 10. Any difficulties with the writing? I don't imagine so. For the purposes of this class, for those who are new, we are not doing script form.
This one's written in.
Oh, look at that.
I don't know if the rest of the book is, but that one.
I think they gave you a wrong book.
Is this yours?
No, it's one that was here.
Oh.
There you go. It was in the wrong stack. But we are not doing the script form for the purposes of this class. Script, if you look there on page 9 at the second set of examples, script can look very different than what you see printed and can be very, very confusing. It's generally not ever printed in script form. It's generally a handwritten form when you're writing notes. People will write in script form because it's a lot faster, a lot smoother. So for the purposes of the class and everything that we do here will be in block form because that's what you're going to see printed in books 99% of the time. Now, page 10. Exercise 1. You're supposed to read these and circle the 2 that match sound-wise. So who wants to go first? Reading down the line. Gabe, go ahead and read it.
Shab,
Good. Next one.
Bob,
Good.
Bot,
Bot. Yep.
Tot,
Yep.
Tob,
Uh-huh.
Tosh,
Tosh. Good.
Tot,
Good.
Bosh.
Bosh. Excellent. So which 2 sounded the same?
The 2 tots.
The 2 tots. The 4th one and the next to last one. All right. How about the second one? Who wants to do the second one?
I
Eric, go ahead.
Tosh,
Mm-hmm.
Tob,
Tob, good.
Tot,
Tot, yes.
Shot,
Shot, excellent.
Shab,
Mm-hmm.
Shot,
Good.
Shot, Bot,
Bot, good.
and Bob.
Bob, excellent. Good, good, good. Which 2 sounded the same?
4 and 6.
The 4th and the 6th. They both say shot. Good. And the 3rd one, Joshua.
Tob,
Tob, good.
Shab,
Uh-huh.
Bob,
Good.
Bosh,
Good.
Bot.
Yep.
Shot,
Good.
Tot,
Mm-hmm.
Bob.
Excellent. So,
The ones that sound the same are the third one and the last one.
3rd one and the last one both sound like Bob. Excellent. Good, good, good. Did y'all practice exercise 4? Yeah? All right, let's do them together. Line A. First one.
Shot,
Shab,
Sha, good.
Top,
Tot,
Ta, excellent.
Bob,
Bob,
Mm-hmm.
Bob,
Bosh,
Bosh, good.
Top,
Bosh,
Mm-hmm.
Shot,
Bosh,
Mm-hmm.
Shot,
Shab,
Good.
Bob,
Bob.
Bob, good. Everybody got that? Very good. All right. Let's drop down to line C. First one.
Bob,
Bob,
Ba-ba.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.
Bob,
Bob,
Bob is the second one. What's the third?
Bot,
Bot, good.
Tot,
Tosh,
Baton, Batosh, good.
Batot,
Batot. Good, good. Let's skip down again. We'll go to line E. Sha, good.
Shaw,
Mm-hmm.
Shot,
Excellent.
Shot,
Good.
Shabat,
Good.
Shabbat.
Shabash, good.
Shot,
Shosh,
Shosh, excellent. We had that vocabulary word right in the middle there. We had Shabbat.
Got it.
Let's skip a line again. Let's go to line G.
Bob,
Bob,
Ba, good.
Top,
Tot,
Mm-hmm.
Shot,
Shab,
Mm-hmm.
Bosh,
Good.
Shot,
Good.
Shosh,
Shashat.
Shot,
Shatat. Good. Very good. I hear y'all.
Those are nonsense, aren't they?
These are 95% of them are nonsense. Generally, they will throw in the vocabulary word from this chapter in here. Like we had Shabbat there, that's the vocabulary word for the chapter. But most of these are just nonsense words just to get you to make the sounds and get comfortable with the syllables. Because it's generally consonant vowel for your syllable, unless it's either a single syllable word or the last syllable of the word is generally consonant vowel consonant. So bot is a single syllable word but it's consonant, vowel, consonant. Shabbat is consonant, vowel for Shah, and then Bat, consonant, vowel, consonant.
Yep.
So it's trying to get you used to that breakup of the syllables. Rather than trying to teach you new words, they're like, get used to how it feels, how it sounds, and how to read. Do that first, or learn words later. Because if we just start throwing 1,000 words at you, you're not going to be able to grasp
That's
it.
how they teach now, reading.
Yeah.
That's because I did that, nonsense words. Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty much. Same thing.
And
Good.
I know as adults, it seems so funny to have to do this again because it feels like first grade all over. Because you're like, ba, ba, sha, ta, and it's like, yeah, but that's familiarity. That's getting that comfort with this is how the sounds are made, and these are how they go together, and all that. When we look at page 11, I talked a little bit about this last time. There are two ways of pronunciation generally: Ashkenazic and Sephardic. The Sephardic pronunciation comes from Spain, Portugal, the Middle East. People who are Jews who are native to that area who learned Hebrew speak in a Sephardic manner, generally. Ashkenazic is Eastern European, Poland, Romania, Germany, and all that. They have a different pronunciation. For the majority of time, American Hebrew synagogues were Ashkenazic because we had so much immigration from Eastern Europe into America in the 18 and 1900s. And so most of the Hebrew spoken in America was Ashkenazic. When the state of Israel was created and they started everybody gathering back together in the Middle East, Sephardic is the de facto standard, but it's actually about 50-50 if you go there. I mean, that's because you have people from both.
All over the place.
Yeah, you have Eastern European, you have Mediterranean Jews, all coming back together in one place, and they're going to retain their style. For the purposes of everything we do here at VOB is Sephardic. And everything in this book, they teach from a Sephardic point of view. That means the emphasis is going to be on the last syllable of the word. Usually. There are rules regarding when it moves, and we learn those later in the book. So, Shabbat, our emphasis is on the bat, not on the shah. If we're Ashkenazic, as it shows you in this book, it'd be Shabbos. They take the tav, they soften it to an S if it's at the end of a word in Ashkenazic, and they put the emphasis on the first syllable.
Is that kind of always true? Like, bot would be bus.
In Ashkenazic, that is generally the rule. There's very, very, very few hard rules in Hebrew, but that is generally one. It's one of those that's like a 95%er for Ashkenazic. I have a lady who went through Hebrew 1 last year. She's in my Hebrew 2 class this year, who is Jewish from a synagogue out in Durham. They're totally Ashkenazic. And so she and I go back and forth a lot about the pronunciation. But she knows we do it Sephardic here. We do it the right way. So, and she would beg to differ. But, so, the point is they look the same when they're written. There's not a writing difference between Ashkenazi and Sephardic. It's exactly the same letters. It's simply the tradition of pronunciation. We stick to Sephardic. We don't do Ashkenazic at
Kind
all.
of like American English versus English.
But there's a huge difference, and it's getting further and further apart as time goes on. Yes, big difference. Okay, let's turn over to page 12, chapter 2. So, as I said, we have 3 Hebrew letters: Shin, Bet, Tav. The sh, the t. And then we have 2 vowel points: the Patak and the Kametz. Both of them say ah, as in father. Yes. With those, we can spell our vocabulary word, which is Shabbat, which we know is the seventh day, the day of rest. And we know it's a day of rest based on the root, which is Shin, Vet, Tav. Hebrew roots generally have 3 letters. There are a couple with 2, but they're rare, very rare. For the most part, it'll have 3 roots, the 3 letters. Any word that has those 3 letters in that order in the middle of it, it may have a prefix, it may have a suffix, it may even have a vowel thrown in between. It will have a basic meaning of rest, ceasing from labor, stop, desist, halt, that kind of a thing, whether it's noun or verb. So something like a work stoppage would have Shin, Vet, Tav in the middle of it. You know, if workers go on strike, the word for that has Shin, Vet, Tav in the middle of it. A stop sign will have Shin, Vet, Tav telling you to stop. But now we learn 2 new letters, 3 new symbols though. The first one is a lamed. It says L, as in lake, or look. It's equivalent to an English L. The second one is a mem, which says M. M. Now that's important. When I say it says L or it says M, that's important because there's always going to be a vowel following it. Almost always, anyway. Right? We generally don't have a consonant that's not followed by a vowel unless it comes at the end of a word, which the third symbol we see there is a mem sophit. It will only show up at the end of a word. It is an ending form. Remember that Hebrew originally did not have vowel pointings in it. The scroll we have in here has no vowel pointings. The Dead Sea Scrolls, 2,000 years older than this one, have no vowel pointings in them. Sophit forms were developed so that you knew this was the end of the word. Not every letter has a Sophit form, though. I'm not an expert in linguistics. I don't know the reasons why for a lot of these things. But the closed mem is a Sophit form put at the end of a word to mark it as the end of a word. From an artistic standpoint, from a, I don't know what to call it. There is one closed mem in the middle of a word in a Torah scroll. I wish I had thought to look it up. It's in there for a purpose. The scribes wanted to make a point with what that word was. There are a number of those things in Torah scrolls. There is the broken vav that is generally said to represent the breaking of Israel. There is also the passage of the Song of Moses that, or the Song of Miriam, that has the columns divided to represent the dividing of the Red Sea. There are artistic choices that are made in the Torah scroll where they will use something specifically to draw your attention to it and to make a point with it. That's the only place in there that there's a closed mem in the middle of a word. And it was for a purpose, and I didn't think to look it up ahead of time. I kind of had it.
So when you see that, it's the end of a word, basically.
If you see it. Because if you go look, you can look at some of the Dead Sea Scrolls online. You will see that there's not much space between words. Words generally run together. They conserved space as much as possible, and so they didn't put big gaps between words like we have in English. The words generally ran together. Same thing in Greek. If you ever study Greek and look at Greek from the day back then, there was no spaces. There was hardly any punctuation. They just went, and you just knew the words. And so the closed mem will only show up at the end of a word. So when we see it at the end of a word, it says not m, because we're not expecting a vowel to follow. So when we say mem sophit says it's because there's no vowel that's going to follow it, like m, like an open mem. Does that make sense? Questions, comments? No? Good. I do encourage questions and comments. I will get sidetracked often though. So don't distract me too much or I'll go off on weird tangents. If we look at page 13, line B there, this is having us practice the new consonant sound with the vowel sound we already know. So the first one is
La.
la. The second one,
La.
la. Third,
Ma.
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 Ma. Good.
Ta.
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 Ta. Good.
Sha.
Cha.
Sha.
Mm-hmm.
Ba.
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 And ba. Good. If we skip down to line D, this starts throwing that final mem in there just so you can see it when it's part of a word, it's part of a syllable. So line D, the first one, bomb. Good. Mm-hmm. The, bomb.
Sham.
Sham. Good. Lam. Excellent.
Tom.
Tom. Mm-hmm.
Mom.
Mom. There's no vowel following that second mem. So we got to remember to close it up there. So mom.
Mom.
Mom. All right. And then the third to last one there, the sixth one.
Bang.
Bomb. Good. Lam. Very good.
Mom.
And the last one is mom.
Do they ever have vowels on that list? The mem is always just gonna hang by itself like that.
The mem is always going to hang by itself. Will there be vowels at the end of words? Yes.
Okay.
Particularly with endings. When you start throwing on suffixes. In English, we have articles and possessives and things like that are actually separate words from, like your house. They would say beja. It would be house of you or house your. But it's part of the word. They slap it onto the end of the word. And that cha, the kaf sofit, has a tiny little patak stuck in the middle of it as an ending vowel. We'll see later on, it comes in later chapters, but the kaf sofit will always have a vowel in it, whether it's a shava or it's a patak. Because if it has a shava in it, that means it's part of the word, the root word itself. If it has a kametz in it, sorry, not a patak, a kametz, I will get those confused and I apologize. It's been years and I still get patak and kametz mixed up in my head. Yeah. Yeah, patak and kametz, the line versus the little t. I get those confused all the time in my own head. I know what I'm saying, but that's not what I mean. Kind of a thing.
Don't confuse.
But there are times where, yes, there will be a vowel at the end of the word. Usually it has to do with an ending being thrown on a word. A suffix.
Ending what?
A suffix on the end of a word. We don't get a whole lot into those in this book. That's more of a Hebrew 2 thing. So, but for these practices, these are generally nonsense like we talked about. And they have some in here, like line G. Drop down to line G, the second one in. Ba ma. If that were a true Hebrew word, they would put a hey on the end, actually. Because a hey would be silent at the end of a word. Just like we put Sarah, we can spell it with an A or with an H or without an H. Same thing in Hebrew. If there's a hey on the end, it's not pronounced. So generally you wouldn't see it this way. You would see it with a hey on the end, but you would still have that vowel sound as the end.
So they still have silent letters like we do too.
They definitely have silent letters. Absolutely. There's 2 of them that are always silent, even in the middle of the word. So
So what is the word again?
Which one?
G, the first one's pronounced well.
The first one is bomb. Bet,
I
bomb.
thought you said that was silent.
No, I was talking about the second one. Ba, ma. I was talking about how if that were a true Hebrew word, they would put an H on the end of it, basically. They wouldn't leave it hanging with that vowel. But because these are nonsense, they're getting you to just make the sounds. That's all you need to worry about is how to sound it out. Let's look at line E. Let's back up just a little bit, do a little more practice.
Ball.
Ball, good.
Ball.
Maul, good. Shawl, yep. Tall, Tom, good. Mom, Mosh, Losh, good. How about line F? Lot, Mott, good. Lom, good. Mom, Losh, good. Mosh, Lob, Mop. Yep, very good. All right, let's do line G together. We've done the first one, bomb. The second one was bama, good. Bala, baba, there you go, babal. Yeah. And then the next one, right, ba, lal, good. Bamal, good. I explained last time that when you're doing these multiple syllable words, what helped me as I got further on in the books, when we're starting to get into 3, 4, 5, 6 syllable words that are all thrown together, putting a line, just taking and drawing a line at each syllable really does help in slowing you down, getting the pronunciation of that syllable first, and then starting to pull them all together. So something like the last one there, ba, mal. Okay, now I can put together ba, mal. Put my emphasis on the second one because that's the way it's done. Great, now I got it.
I think it seems confusing because you get the two llamas and one has a vowel, one doesn't.
Right.
Seems like you should want to say something else.
And that happens a lot, is you're like, oh, there should be something following that second one. Ba-lal. We don't get a lot of stuff like that in English.
Mhm.
There are going to be some vowel and letter combinations that you're going to be like, that's not comfortable. I don't do that naturally.
That's really good.
And just wait till you get to the stuff. When you get to the chets and the coughs, and it's just like, oh, bring water, lots and lots of water.
Mom doesn't want to make the sound.
No, we don't speak gutturals in English at all.
No.
Anybody who attends here, you know Raquel. She comes up here, she plays the violin. She's German. She speaks German natively. She goes to Israel, learns Hebrew, and it's like
Yes.
that because German is a guttural language that uses those guttural tones. She goes there and she's like, it's no problem. This is easy. I'm like, my throat hurts. I'm like, I can't do that. And she's like, well, it's not reish, right? It's reish. I'll get to that level later. I'll stick with my reishes.
That's like rolling your R's and all that funny stuff that some languages do.
Yes. But only they roll it at the back of their throat rather than at the end of their tongue. So, line H, more practice. Practice makes perfect. Tom, good. Again, Tama, then Mama, good. Tamam, yep. Talam, good. Talal, good. Malal, very good. Line I, Sham, good. Shama, good. Shala, good. Right, Shalom, good. Next, Shabam, good. Shabal, very good. Last one, line J. Lash, good. Lavash, good. Excellent. Very, very good. Man, y'all are getting great at this. Okay.
There was one real word in there, wasn't there?
Shema.
No, it's not. That's not it. No, Shema's written entirely differently.
That's what I was looking at saying that don't look very.
No, Shema is actually Sheen, Shva, Mem, Kemetz, Yod.
So there's extra letters thrown in there too.
Oh, no, not, I'm sorry. Not Kemetz, Yod. Ein. Now I've confused myself.
Yeah.
That-
Sounds like always.
It just looked like it would sound like it, so
It sounds similar, but not quite the same.
that's called right.
Yeah.
That's about.
So vowels. We got two new vowel symbols. Both make the same sound. For the new folks, this book does not write the names of these vowel points in here, but the names are important. Now, they will not be on the test at the end. And yes, there is a final exam.
I have to take it in before. It's
Yeah,
hard.
it's not hard. They give you, in the back page of the book, they give you all the vowel points and all the names and what they say. And then on the inside of that, if you open it up, it has all the consonants, all the various consonant forms. And it has every root and every vocabulary word from this book. So there's your cheat sheets. I would recommend that when we reach these points in the book where we're talking about the vowels, write in the names of the vowels next to them. I don't know why they didn't. There are some editing things in this book that if they ever release a new version, hopefully they'll fix. So the first one there is a Holam Malay.
Say it again, please.
Holam Malay. Yep, Cholam. Malay, Malei. Holam Malay. And it makes a long O sound.
How do you pronounce that second word in the other, the Holam
Right.
CH?
Right. The second one is Holam Chaser. Cholam Chaser. That's what it looks like. But it's Holam Chaser. Generally in transliteration, if you see a CH, it's going to be a yeah. Yeah, that's why I said bring water when we do that chapter.
Why do we pronounce John's name? Chuck,
What's that?
John's name in Hebrew is pronounced how?
Yonatan?
Because
Oh, Yochanan.
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 Is
Yeah.
the CH in there?
That CH is Yochanan.
They don't do cha, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do Chuck, you know. And,
No,
No, that's
that-
not, that's English.
Yeah, that's the English
Yeah.
CH.
That's English.
but I still, you know, because somebody corrected me. And it was,
They said Yochanan. That is not a Hebrew pronunciation. You go calling somebody Yochanan and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know who you're talking to, but that's not Yochanan.
yeah.
I was at this grocery store and had the bumper sticker. What did we have, that bumper sticker in Hebrew? And you gotta give the English people credit, you know?
At least they tried.
Because the guy comes up, he's like, the bumper sticker, and he's saying, it was hilarious. Because, I mean, it was just a funny thing. He's like, yeah, you get massage. I mean, he's trying to say
Mashiach.
and he's like, massage. And he says, yeah, you know, and he's trying to say it. And it was funny. Because they don't really know. They're doing it by English. They're
Yes.
trying to, yeah.
I showed it last time, but we have our Siddur up here, our prayer book that we use every Shabbat that has the blessings in it that we do up here and at the Torah scroll and things like that. And it's written in Hebrew, but it's also got the transliteration written underneath it in between the lines. And then next to it, it has the English. So Julio reads the Hebrew, I read the English kind of a thing. And when Julio's not here, we tend not to do that part of it because if it's Kevin and I, one of us is going to butcher it so badly. And it's like, even though I speak, I can read Hebrew, I actually find it easier to read it without the transliteration there because the transliteration gets in the way. With it right in between like that and written so small, I will naturally look to the transliteration rather than looking at the words. Even though I know the words, I can probably say them by heart if I just didn't look at the book. But when I open up the book and I do it so that I know I'm getting it right, I'm like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'd rather have it just in Hebrew.
That's fine.
Okay, page 14. Now we're going to practice with the new vowels and some of the new consonants. So line A,
It's like,
bow. Good. Notice that it's just a tiny little dot set up next to it. A lot of times, I mean, most of the vowels are directly underneath your consonants. Most of them, you'll have a consonant, then you'll have a vowel stuck right underneath it, then you'll go on to the next consonant. The Holam Haser is a tiny little dot that'll show up in between. You'll have consonant, consonant, and then this tiny little dot right in between them. In some things, I mean, the Torah scroll that we have over here is a kid's Torah scroll. It is a practice Torah scroll. The font in it is horrible to try to read because it's ceremonial and it's tiny. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I can't see the Holam for all the other marks that are in there. And it's written so small that it's so easy to miss. Julio gets up here and reads that thing. I'll give you a secret. About 20% of what he says is wrong because it's so small.
I was.
And he's trying to be quick with it. And he can read Hebrew. He can read this scroll. He trained under an Orthodox rabbi in Columbia. He knows how this works. But when you're up here and they're under pressure and you're reading something out of here, you're going to make a mistake. If you just keep going, 90% of people aren't going to know.
Exactly. But you can,
But it's easy. It's very easy to overlook that Holam because it's so tiny, especially in a crowded scroll.
why don't they get another one? Better one.
Better, bigger printers.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. is the thing. It's, even that one was 100 and change.
Really?
So to get a larger one that's got all the typing in it is probably $400 or $500. We used to pull this one out.
Mhm.
When I first started coming here, we used to pull this one out and actually unroll it on the table. It's a pre-Holocaust Torah scroll. It is a very fragile one, and it's starting to show its age. And so we turn it every now and then. We take it out wearing gloves and all that kind of thing and turn it a little bit just to keep it limber, but we're worried about it cracking any further and breaking any further. So it does get moved throughout the year, and coming up, we have Simchat Torah, where we roll the scroll back. We're almost at the end. You know, when we get through Sukkot, at the end of Sukkot, we're done with the Torah scroll. We roll it back to the beginning and start over at Genesis 1:1. We will unroll that one. I mean, we've done it before. We've unrolled it all the way around the room and then re-rolled the whole thing back to the front. Or we've unrolled it down the middle of the table and one person stands at one end, another person at the other. Just sit there and crank it back. It takes us about 10, 15 minutes to do. This one takes a couple hours because we move very, very, very slowly with it and very, very gently with it. I mean, it's lambskin and it's 100 years old. Really, it has reached the end of its useful life. And so traditionally, they would take it somewhere and have a ceremony and bury it. This was given to us, amazingly. I don't know, that was before my time that it was given to Richard and Donna, but the fact that somebody actually gave that to us, a non-Jewish community, and it is a, like I said, it survived the Holocaust. It is an Eastern European Torah scroll that survived the Holocaust. So we don't want to damage it any further or get rid of it. We would rather keep it as best we can. Maybe someday if we have the money, we would replace it or have it restored and, you know, keep it in a climate controlled case or something like that for display. But a new Torah scroll was $75,000 and they don't sell to non-Jewish congregations. You can't just call up a scribe and be like, hey, can I get one of those?
No.
They don't do that. You got to know somebody and you got to be well connected with a synagogue in order to get a kosher Torah scroll. If you've never seen one done, there is a YouTube video about how it's done. And it's amazing, just absolutely amazing, the work that goes into it. One guy for a full year does nothing but write that scroll.
Wow.
It's intense.
And before printing, they had to write out books too.
Yeah.
Handwrite books.
Handwritten books. That's why books are expensive.
Yeah.
That's why people in the time of Yeshua they didn't have it in their homes. They didn't have a scroll sitting by the bedside that they could just sit down and just read the scriptures. They memorized. They knew these things. So it was a totally different time.
We don't use our memories the same way they had to have, I guess. They must not.
No, not at all.
Life was simple.
And yet, for 200 years, none of that was written down. Not a single letter of the Torah was written down. It was transmitted orally for 200 solid years and then was written down. And now we can look at one from today and look at a Dead Sea Scroll and go, they're the same.
Wow.
That's intense. That's just amazing. That kind of preservation has got to be a God thing. So, did we do line A? No, we didn't do line A. We started line A and then I got off on a rabbit trail. So, let's get back on track. Line A. The first one was bow. Good. The second one, bow again. Yes.
Why does that look like a Bob?
We'll get to that later. Vav as a consonant looks exactly the same, but without the dots. And yeah, it's.
Because I want to pronounce the Bob
Yes, and there are going to be situations later on where you will look at a word and have to decide whether that's a vav or a cholam, because you're not going to be sure. The way that you can be sure is it followed by a vowel? If it's not got a vowel under it, then it's got to be a vowel itself. For the purposes of these exercises, we haven't gotten to the vav yet as a consonant. So anytime now, right now, from now until we actually get it as a consonant, anytime you see a vav, it's going to be a Holden. O. It's going to be an O.
Okay.
Between now and when we actually get it as a consonant, it's an O. So, bo. What's the third one?
Mo.
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 Mm-hmm.
Toe.
Toe.
Toe,
Toe.
Good.
low,
Low.
low,
Yep.
show,
Show.
show.
And show. Good.
And the S, the sheen, that's confusing because it's got two dots, doesn't it?
Oh.
Like it could be written with the two dots, a dot in the beginning, a dot in the end.
Well, it's not written over the sheen though. It's written next to it, above it. Yeah, it can be very confusing, and a little later on, it's going to get even more confusing with that. Because if you have a holum that comes before a sheen, if you have that holum haser before a sheen, the holum haser will actually disappear. And that dagesh that's on the right side of the sheen is both an O and a sh.
But
It's
it isn't gonna
doing-
be there later, so I'm just
Yeah.
saying. Is it gonna be there later? I don't know. I'm
It's-
believing I can do it by sight, because that's how we do our sight words, you know?
Yes.
We do the same thing by sight.
Yes.
Would you pronounce the last two again, please?
Show for both of them. Show and show.
Okay.
You have the sh, and then the holum saying oh, sh, oh, show.
Shut.
Line B,
Toe.
toe, good.
Show,
Show,
low,
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 mo, good.
low,
Toe,
low,
low, bow,
low,
mo,
show,
show,
low.
and low. Good. Now we'll start adding on a final letter. Line C.
Low.
No.
No, both of you went with loam.
Oh, bone.
That's a b.
Oh,
Bet.
dang.
Yeah.
That's a bet at the beginning
We
there.
got all excited. Bone.
Boom.
Sorry, what's that?
I was trying to pronounce it. That's all.
Okay.
I want to.
Bone.
Boom for the first one. Yep, boom.
Because I didn't know. Okay, thanks. Wow.
Show.
Show.
Showm.
Tone.
Toe.
Toe.
Tone.
Show.
Show.
Mm-hmm. You know,
What?
which one?
Fourth one is what?
Showm.
Oh.
You have the sheen
Oh.
saying sh, the holum
Oh.
saying oh,
The Shom.
showm,
Okay, I saw it finally.
and the mem. Yep. That vav, if you're familiar with it, it could throw you off when you're first learning this. Yeah.
Okay. that is-
All right, and then the next one after showm,
Mo.
mome. Right.
Tone,
Tome. Uh-huh.
bone.
Low.
Yes.
No.
Good.
Tone.
Loam.
This
All right.
is one letter.
This is
Line.
all gonna come together.
It comes together. I promise you.
Yeah, it will.
It does.
It
And
will.
practice,
You
practice,
will.
practice. That's why I said when you're at home practicing this, practice it out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more you
It's
look
one
at
thing
it
to
with
see
your
it. It's
eyes and
another
see
thing
it,
to actually say it and make your
then
mouth speak
look at
those
it.
words
Yeah,
and to
you can do
make
it.
those various things that you have to do to make that sound. Because it sounds like a bunch of nonsense when you're trying to do it. You're like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Break it down. Go letter by letter if you have to. M, O, L, mole.
It must be amazing because y'all created the universe with the alphabet. So,
He spoke it.
oh, wow.
He spoke and it happened. You know?
I'm sure it was a little different. than-
I'm sure it
I
was.
know if his language is the same pronunciation ours does.
Honestly, I wouldn't want to hear it.
I probably couldn't
once.
understand it.
It would be the Hebrew standing at the foot of Mount Sinai saying, "Don't let him speak to us." That
That's
you know,
what I thought about.
you go talk to him. I don't want to hear that.
I don't think we can really understand the
No,
language.
No. Oh,
And then
no.
probably- Then you got to add the power of the his
Oh,
words. Has
just-
to be
Just to speak something into
rather
being
than
is
inside.
Yeah.
that would break me.
Amazing.
I guarantee it. Line D.
Mole.
Mole. Good.
Shoal.
Shoal. Uh-huh. Bowl. Good.
Toll.
Toll. Very good.
Mole.
Mole.
Mulch.
Not mott.
Most.
Moat. Right? We're talking long O's here. Boat. Mm-hmm. And shoat. Now.
It's kind of like if you remember, you're learning your vowels in English.
Yeah.
We're learning the short and long right now, which is a lot because they only teach us normally the short vowels for a while.
Yes.
And then you get the long. So
Yeah.
we're getting it in one extension. So if you can like focus on the short vowels for a while at home, you know,
Like
just keep
at.
over that and then you feel good about it, then you go start doing the long. I mean, it's the simplest way because everybody learns at different
Yes.
paces, but that's how it is. You can kind of compare it to how you learned in school, your vowels.
Yes.
I was sick that week.
No, they drilled the short vowels.
Yeah, they-
Kindergarten
Well,
for the whole
the old
year.
school, the old school way you'd write it over and over. Wouldn't you write it?
Yes.
I think I remember doing that when I was a
And
kid.
you know, you didn't get your long vowels till
Repetition,
2 years
repetition.
later. So I don't know if they do that in Jewish, but we only had our short, you did your short vowels for a good 2 years and then you got in the first and second, you get your long vowels.
Yep.
Pre-K
Okay.
and K, yeah.
Here's what I was just talking about. Now it's getting into when the whole Malay is followed by a sheen. Only one dot is used for both the letter and the vowel, for both the sheen and the holam. If it's a holam Malay, they each have their own dot. So look at line E. That first one, you've got your mem. And then it doesn't look like you have a vowel there. But Hebrew always has to have a vowel between consonants. You can't ever have a consonant not followed by a vowel and then another consonant. They don't do diphthongs like we do. They don't put two consonants together. So
So every letter is pronounced.
every letter is pronounced individually with a vowel in between them. Now,
So, mush.
Moshe. If you see a sheen and a letter before it, and there's no apparent vowel, it's a holam. That dagesh that's on that sheen, that dot on that sheen, is a holam.
A whole.
A holam.
Hold on.
The holam
The hol-
haser. The holam haser, the vav isn't there. So it's going to be an O. So yes, that first one, Moshe. The second one is also Moshe, but it has the holam Malay with the vav and the dagesh over it.
So it's most low.
What's that?
So it's drawn out, isn't it?
Nope, still just
We do
Moshe.
use this sometimes.
That sheen is at the end of the word. There's no vowel following it. Moshe.
So Bosch.
Right. Yeah. Good. The third one is Bosch. The fourth one is also Bosch.
No.
No, we haven't gotten to Nuns yet. So that's a.
I'm sorry.
No, the third. She's jumped ahead a little bit. She's on the fifth one. But yes, you're correct. Bosch is for the next two. Tosh.
I was pronouncing it as our alphabet E.
It looks like an N. It's not an N. Not.
It looks like an N in English. That's the problem.
That's what she said over the top.
That's what I'm saying.
Like-
You'll be, it'll come. I
Yeah, that's a
will.
T.
That's a tav. So it's tosh. And then the last one there,
Losh.
losh. Very good.
You're a Losh.
You have now learned the letters and the vowels that spell another basic vocabulary word.
Which
Is
is-
it?
Shalom. Shalom.
Shabbat.
Shalom. We say that so many times. We say that so many times on Shabbat. Y'all ought to know that one. Shalom. It is the Hebrew word for Peace. Like I said, we say it on Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
They named people's
That is-
names over there. A man we met, and us, a man. His name was Shalom.
Yeah.
Shalom.
Shalom.
That's
Yep.
cute.
Or Solomon. Shlomo.
Yes,
His name has that root of
that makes sense.
yes and no. We'll get to that in a second. So Shabbat Shalom means a peaceful Sabbath, a Shabbat of peace.
So when you see this word, it relates to peace.
Yes
Is that
and
what you
no.
were saying?
Look on page 15.
Okay, that's
Page
right.
Page 15 talks about the root of that word.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
Sheen, Lamed, Mem, Sofit.
But it told us previously that a root word can never have a vowel. 4 pages back.
And it doesn't. It has a Sheen, a Lamed, and a Mem, Sofit in it.
All right.
So the roots will not have vowels, they are only consonants. And if that consonant is the third one in the root, we'll write it as a Sofit form if it has a Sofit form. So that's why it's a Sheen, Lamed, Mem, Sofit. When that root winds up in the middle, Shalom Ha, your peace, that Mem is going to be a normal open Mem. It's not going to be a Mem Sofit because it's not the last letter in that word. But the root for peace, Sheen, Lamed, Mem, Sofit, it means wholeness or completeness. There is a much deeper meaning than just peace.
Mhm.
We're not talking about just, I'm not fighting somebody today.
Right.
We are talking about a complete peace. There is no conflict within me.
It's deep.
It is not something that we really can grasp.
I know it.
We are never truly at peace in our lives. We always have something nagging in the back of our minds that, when I come here on Shabbat, I get up here and I talk about this every now and then, and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm here because I can set aside everything that I had to worry about tomorrow and everything that I had to worry about yesterday. But at the same time, that doesn't mean they're out of my head. It just means I'm not going to worry about that today. I won't talk politics on Shabbat. I won't. Somebody tries to engage me, I'm like, "Nope, sorry,
Oh, it doesn't bring peace, really.
not today. There's no peace in politics. No matter how hard people try. Nope. Sorry. I'm not going to talk conspiracy theories. I'm not going to talk politics. I'm not going to talk work. I don't have a job except for my kids. I stay at home with my kids and teach my kids all week.
And it's so significant to Yeshua. And, he came back and I know in the Hebrew Bible it says Shalom Alechem.
Right.
Elechem.
You
And
bring
so
peace.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's that deep peace that he gave us at that instant in time. Came to earth.
Peace
This
be with
peace
you.
is shalom. And that's why when they say it, even in Israel or people, it's interesting because they really mean it in a deeper manner. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like just us saying hi. They're really
It's,
saying
Peace.
they
We-
want the wholeness
Peace
of
be
God
upon
to come
you.
from heaven
Yes.
onto you.
may peace
That's
be
what the
upon you.
shalom-
Shalom Aleichem.
The real
Yes.
shalom alechem is.
Peace upon you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That also meant like the ability to destroy chaos.
Sorry.
I've heard it described as the ability to destroy chaos.
I mean,
One of my professors told me.
I wouldn't necessarily call it an ability to destroy chaos. I would call it the polar opposite. I mean, it is as opposite to chaos as you could possibly get. It is wholeness and completeness, perfection.
Yeah. That's what I
Absolute
think he
perfection.
means when he says be perfect as I'm perfect, don't you? Because we think of perfection in a different way. But
Well,
he's trying to tell him,
he also says, "Be holy,
yeah.
as I am holy," which is a totally different word.
Yes.
So, we can never be perfect.
Right. His
We can be
Shalom.
holy,
in the peace.
and he gives us instructions on how to be holy. I mean, Zacharias was a righteous man, according to the Torah. Does that mean he was perfect? No. But he knew his Torah, and he kept his Torah, and he made mistakes, and he atoned for them when he needed to. That made him righteous. And his faith in Adonai made him righteous. Abraham was righteous. We can be holy as God is holy.
But you can't be perfectly.
But we can't be perfect as God is perfect.
But he tells you to be.
He tells us
But
to
it's
be as he is.
But the meaning of perfect, we
Right.
gotta be careful because it's English perfect in our mind, but that is not
No.
the whole, that is not.
Hebrew
the
is a
Hebrew
very
perfect.
poetic language. There
It's
is
not the divine word.
there is bigger meaning to a word.
Yes.
So, like we've been saying, the root for shalom means completeness or wholeness. You can see right there on page 15, 7 words in Hebrew that all have that root in it. Now, you don't have most of these vowels yet. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to just sound them out. But like the third one down, Le Shalem. Le Shalem. That's paying off a debt. Hey, I've completed what I needed to do. I've paid off my house. I've paid off my car. I've paid you back the money that you loaned me. What we have done, our business is complete. It's finished. Mushlam, the fifth one down. Fulfilled. Perfect. Shalem, complete, whole, perfect. Solomon, Shlomo, the perfect one.
That's what it means, the perfect one.
Essentially, but was Solomon perfect? No, of course not. But he was the perfect one that God chose to build his home, right? To build the temple, to be one of the greatest kings Israel saw.
That's what you're saying, it's the completed debt.
So if you were like breaking up this, you would draw the line after the shin. After
On which one?
the last one.
On the last one for Shlom?
After the long, you know how you said you break up.
If I'm going to sound out Solomon's Hebrew name, Shlomo, what we have there, and we're getting kind of ahead of ourselves because there's a whole chapter on that 2 dot shva. What I have there is sh-lo-mo. But when it gets pronounced quickly, it winds up slurring into shla.
Yeah, but you know how you told us you put a line between them.
Right. I would put the line right after that sheen. Sh-lo-mo. Sh-lo-mo.
That was my first thought.
Right. Fast speakers are going to slur that. It's going to become shlomo. Because the shva isn't what you would call a full vowel. It's more of just a guttural. So it's a very quick kind of a in there.
Can we go over these words again?
If you want, sure.
From
The top one.
Yeah.
Shalem. Shalem. Complete, whole, or perfect.
Shalom.
Li shlom.
Shalom.
To be completed. Li
Shalom.
shlom.
Shalom.
You'll learn later that shva in the middle of a word is generally a stoppage of the word. So li shlom. Li shlom. Yep.
Okay.
Now,
third one.
some people will pronounce it like li shalom. It's kind of a who's your teacher
Right.
situation. The way this course teaches it is it's when it's alone in the middle of the word, it's a breaking point for that word. Leash,
Comma or something.
lom. Almost, but you wouldn't stop the word. It doesn't break the word apart into 2 separate words. It's simply in your pronunciation. There's just a slight break there. Leash lom. The third one, le shalem.
La Shalem.
Le shalem.
Le
Le-
Shalem.
Le shalem.
Le Shalem.
That's the whole paying back to complete business, to discharge a commitment, to pay a debt, basically. And then the next one, le hashlim.
La Hashlim.
Lehashlim.
Lahashlim.
It's making peace, reconciling. Lehashlim.
She,
Lahashlim.
let us, let us
Lehashlim.
leave.
Yep, lehashlim.
Lahashlim.
Again, you're talking vowel and consonant
tricky.
combinations
Just
that
kinda
we're,
Yeah.
that we're not really used to.
Lahashlim. But we have to keep hearing it. That's why I'm saying.
Lehashlim.
Lahashlim.
The next one, mushlam. Mushlam. Mushlam is fulfilled or perfect.
Mushlam.
The next one, shalemot.
Shalemot.
Shalemot is completeness. It's that status of being complete, wholeness, perfection. And then we've talked about Shlomo being Solomon's name. So all of those have that root, that sheen, lamed, mem. And you can see on some of them, you have a vowel in between, like the lamed and the mem. Like in shalom, there's a vowel there, the vav, the holam vav, the holam malay, right? But that's not part of the root. That's just a vowel in between those consonants. The same thing happens in the fourth one down, lahashlim. You have that yod between the lamed and the mem. That's actually part of the vowel, right? Lahashlim. So you will have occasionally a vowel stuck in between them. So if you turn over to page 16, this is taking an excerpt from prayer books. It tells you how many times it occurs in that particular passage, and it wants you to go through and find the word that has that root, sheen, lamed, mem in it.
Shalom.
Right. Sometimes they completely give it away with the title. Because Oseh Shalom. Well, okay, the first one's going to be the second word in. Shalom.
I found both.
What's Oseh Shalom mean? Before Oseh Shalom. Sorry, I didn't.
It's one of those things that I keep drawing a blank on. The root of that is to make peace,
Peace be with. No, that's different.
like doing peace. Asa is make, do, or act. So yeah, it's kind of a. Of.
What are we doing now?
They're finding the Shalom word in the little passages on page
Yeah,
16.
find the sheen, lamed, mem rooted words that are in the passages.
I know,
On
it's
page.
hard to.
Page
All
16.
those other paragraphs as well?
Yeah, go ahead and do it for all of them.
It's hard to keep up.
Because it's saying,
Well, then, I don't know if I can see this is like this. Here it is. It's got other stuff. in it.
I know, but that's it.
Because it's got other stuff.
Well, then it's gotta be this. And that, right? That's what I thought.
So it doesn't really just mean peace there.
Else, I know, shut. Peace be unto you.
This is not Shalom. I'll show you.
Shalom.
oh,
This is the Shalom.
Shalom.
This Shalom.
Yep, that's the words we just went through. Right there. You know, it's that hard.
ooh, look at that. I don't know what that means.
Lay shalom. Ha shalom.
They don't have that Shalom. They have this. Yeah. That was the Shalom.
But you need shalom.
That's what this means, but not the occurrences of Shalom.
Okay. This is,
Yeah.
that's got it down. Okay,
That's good.
all right. you got it.
That's different. That's kind of hard.
And
Still
with that one.
All right, we got it.
I think so.
Cool. All right, so the first one, the Ose Shalom, shows up twice in there. Which two?
Second and sixth.
Good. Yes. All right, the Shalom Aleichem.
7 times.
Yeah,
First, the first one,
the very first word. Yep.
and then like 3 and 3.
You're right.
Second,
It's
third
kind of
lines.
in a pattern there. Yeah. In the third, fourth, and fifth lines, it's the second and fourth words.
Yeah.
Now, the first set there, the second words of each of those lines is two piece. That's a prefix meaning two. So, like doing peace to someone. And then the second one is the peace. So, like the peace of God kind of a thing. It's
That's the Ha Shalom.
the ha before a word is the direct article the. So rather than a table, the table. Kind of thing. It's being specific. And then the Shalom Rav.
First letter, first word,
First word, yep.
fourth word, and the second.
Fourth word, second line.
6th word, second one.
Yep.
Third line.
Last
No, they didn't try to trick you. They just want you to recognize that sometimes it shows up in the middle of a word and looks a little different.
Last
Be Shlomecha.
Last word and fourth one.
There you go. Last word of the fourth line.
Good job.
But yeah, that one in the middle there, it has both a prefix and a suffix. In your piece. So it's saying be, meaning in, and cha at the end, be shlomecha. It's saying in your piece. In the piece of you, kind of.
Come on.
Yeah, in your piece. In the piece that belongs to you is where they want to be, kind of a thing. Okay, so your homework. We are out of time and it's perfect.
It's not this
Writing practice.
Practice writing.
Use block form.
Use the block form only.
one.
Right. Something to notice, particularly about the mem when you're doing this. Their block form has you make it a triangle, basically. Whereas the printed version is more boxy, like the font version that's in here. However you want to do it is fine. If you want, just remember that you can't close the bottom and there's going to be a little tail at the top sticking up to one side. I got in the habit of doing triangles because it was easier for me to differentiate it and easier for me to keep from accidentally closing the mem when I should. Every little bar, every little toe that overhangs, or every little hook that's at the end of every little bit of that letter is important. So when you're writing a tav, if you don't have the little foot on that one vertical leg, it can cause you a problem later on. It doesn't change the meaning, it might change the letter entirely. Because, hey, a hey looks an awful lot like a het. The difference is there's a little bit of a gap on one leg between the top bar and the vertical. You close that gap, you suddenly change from a h to a ch, and change the word entirely. So it's very, very important.
So little things matter.
Yeah, little things matter. And that's kind of one of those things where every jot and tittle,
Not one jot or one tittle.
not one jot and one tittle. I mean, he's being specific there. He's talking about tiny little things in the Torah. Nothing is going to change. Right? So mind the little things.
You sure you can appreciate that verse now?
Yeah. When you actually start writing it, you're like, oh wow, I can see
Even if it's
why
like just a tiny little.
every little bit. That's why practicing it over and over and over again is going to make you more comfortable with it, more familiar with it.
Right.
And then on page 18, do the exercises and practice the reading that's on 18 and 19. When we come back, we'll do just like we did today. We will go over the homework and do the practice reading in section 4, exercise 4 there. We will go through it together. We won't do every line. We'll jump around a little bit. But pretty soon I'm going to start having you do it individually because I need to be able to hear whether somebody's following along.
Why you looking at me?
I'm looking at everybody. Everybody.
Can we go over the words real quick too that we went over before we start this too, like every time, so we can reinforce the words we already know? Just going over it,
Oh.
hearing it.
Well, when we start chapter 3, there's a review at the beginning of chapter 3.
Okay.
Every chapter, there's a review of every letter we've done,
Okay,
every
great.
vowel we've done, every vocabulary word, and every root. And we will do that every single time
Cool.
because these are building blocks, little tiny blocks building up on top of each other so that hopefully by the end of it, we're solid on how to say it,
Yeah.
how to read it.
Is it usually 3 things at a time, 3 letters or 3 combinations? Or something?
For the
Like
most
count
part,
3
yes.
letters?
Yes. When we get to some of the more complicated vowels, it'll just be one vowel for that whole chapter. Like the schwa is one that you generally want to jab your eye out with a fork because there's rules that go along with it of when it's pronounced, when it's not pronounced. And you're like, oh gosh, here we go.
What time do they have them blowing tonight or?
6:30 is Rosh Chodesh.
All right.
So we come, we have a meal, we'll get up and give a short little talk about the upcoming month as far as like symbolism and name and, biblical stuff that goes along with it. And then he'll blow the shofar out front.
Then,
So,
so we'll have an hour and a half between second.
yeah, we're going to go home and heat up chicken. Yeah. I mean, for anybody that's going to go on to Hebrew 2, just know that Hebrew 2 starts you off translating. But it's simple stuff to translate. So it's
That's good,
blessings that you already know generally,
yeah.
Olivia's
but
taking.
it definitely does build. It is building blocks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure thing, guys. See you
Thanks,
next week.
Jeremy.
Did you send out that email on the,
I didn't. It was a crazy week, but I will.
that's okay, cause I didn't.
I know. I was like, oh yeah, that helps. Helps having the right email.
What's up?
I saw it at night. I saw it at night. So she